little juice before we go in here.
Oh, yeah.
I can already feel I will have to go pee in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I had coffee and a breakfast sandwich right before this. Like as we pulled up, I go, the downside about this is that I now have to poop, but I also have to record a podcast. And Ben, you're welcome. I'm not going to blow up your bathroom. We're just going to do the podcast. Hey, welcome to NewWayStories.
Woo-woo.
I interrupted Darius to officially start this pod. We are a comedy podcast that is all about making the world a better place through creativity and story. And I was kind of thinking about it. I think we are like, this podcast is like an award-winning literary novel.
It is award-winning.
There's a lot of meandering, and we rarely get to the point. And I think at the end of it, you know, some people like it, and they're like, masterpiece. But most people hate it, I think. You know,
Kings.
like, I think for that, yeah, man, we're like, I think we could go in the annals of,
Let's not do that.
I don't want to do that.
Of literary award-winning novels. We're going to get a Nobel Peace Prize for literature through this comedy podcast. They go, well, listen, through all of our like criteria, there's meandering. They never get to the point. Some people really, really like it, but most people hate it. They go, what is this but not like an incredible novel?
Indeed.
I'm your host, Jesse Roberts, and I am an author and a podcast host. And since the fire at my coffee shop, some say I'm unemployed. Others say that I'm a part-time arsonist. With me, as always, is Darius Giles, who's currently playing in a church. That's exciting. I think I've already done this bit, but I was going to say, but I suppose some may say he's also unemployed. From a certain point of view. We'll get a Star Wars reference in there already.
And since the fire at Jesse's coffee shop, I am unofficially on the run.
Hey Darius, listen. I got a proposition for you. As neither of us are making money, what if you set a fire and I'll collect insurance?
Yes.
I don't know. Hopefully,
this is all a joke.
I was going to say, hopefully the insurance doesn't really do like a real deep dive. And they go, well, Jesse has a podcast. Maybe he will admit fully to setting the fire.
I will say the most awkward part was when Jesse said, maybe you should set a fire, and I interrupted him. I already had a gas can near me, and I started dousing both of us in gas, and he was choking, and I said I knew it would end this way. And then he clarified a fire at my coffee shop.
The only
said, that's where they want them to find our bodies there.
Right. There you go. This is clearly a murder suicide, not in the traditional way. You set both on fire at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very literary. It's what this podcast is all about.
It's poetic justice.
The only gainfully employed member of our team is our producer, Ben Salazar. Give it up. Make some noise at home. We can't hear you, but we're just trusting that you are clapping and cheering right now. That's very exciting.
Making gains and employed.
Today we're talking about the best villains. Talking comic books, movies, video games, maybe literature. I don't know. None of us read all that much, but maybe
we talk about my ex-bosses.
personal villains. That's in Nemesis. Oh no, Nemesis. I forgot. I have Batman Nemesis candies that I meant to give to Ben today, and I keep forgetting it.
I feel like this is going to be a
Dang
bit.
it.
You probably didn't get it from me.
I swear.
And you're just going to keep saying that.
I swear to the Lord above, he can back me on this. I bought it for you in Canada.
I swear on a stack of Fivels. What did you just say?
I bought it for him in Canada.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I was doing a bit. Sorry. I don't know why, but in my mind, swearing on a stack of Fivels instead of Bibles just was really funny.
Like Fifel Goes West. It's just a stack of VHSs.
Well, it's like something that you're saying to try to get around. You know, like a loophole for.
Oh, gotcha. Like doll hairs. Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Dollars. Yeah.
So we're talking about what makes a great villain. Generally, philosophize on something that does not matter in the slightest, which is my favorite thing to do. But first, we're gonna do our one quick question.
One quick question.
Usually, we philosophize
News
about
flash.
Oh, jeez. Is that
Do you
real?
have a new flash? Do you have a new news flash for us?
He just finished. They just finished filming in. Oh, where were they? They're close to finishing.
Ben, if you don't have a real update, don't give it. No, I'm just kidding.
He also did release there's like a Metropolis like little crest that's been seen like spotted around, and it's a pretty cool little logo for the city that they made. And so
Okay.
they posted that. It was a cool little thing. But they are finished. They're almost done. They finished filming on location wherever they were.
Nice. All right. That's they're finished recording filming the new Superman, James Gunn's Superman.
Oh, sorry.
If you aren't fully into it, or you didn't get last week's news flash.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people have told me that
in.
a lot of people have told me that they fast forward the news flash.
It's a great time. It's a great time. There's one of my favorite bits in documentary now is it's a concert where this band is getting back together, right? And they have all these hits, and then they break up and they do their single work. And I can't remember. Fred Armisen's like the main singer. The most popular song is a single from oh my gosh, I'm blanking on names, man. That's terrible. The girl who plays Beyonce amongst Maya Rudolph.
Oh yeah.
So her single is like the most popular, but you can totally tell Fred Armisen like doesn't want to play it. Then I think it's Bill Hader's single. They're like, this is one from whatever Bill Hader's character is. He goes, this is probably a great time to use a restroom, or like because it's a good song, but I know a lot of people like use this time. It's really really funny. And then they have to like go into the song. It's great.
Dude, there's this bit at the show Daisy Jones and the Six, towards the end of the show, the bass player hates the lead singer. The lead singer hates the bass player. They've been friends since childhood. And at their very last show, the lead singer is definitely not sober. And he starts going through the band and talking about how awesome they are and then letting them solo. And he saves the bass player for last. And he's like, and Eddie, you piece of crap. I wish you weren't in this band. And then doesn't let him solo. And the guy totally like falls for it. Like the bass player is like, he's like getting ready to rip his solo. And then his face totally changes. It's one of my favorite bits.
That's great. So typically we philosophize about creativity and things of that nature, and then we talk about something fun in the beginning, where it turns into the whole podcast. Whatever. We're gonna switch it around. We're gonna do the old switcheroo.
Oh my gosh!
Do inspiration first and see if that takes over the entire podcast, and we won't talk. Maybe we won't talk about villains. But the one quick question: what has inspired you recently?
Oh,
maybe it's a Bible verse. Maybe it's a story. I think for me, is mostly I really have been. It's not a Bible verse, but I've just really been contemplating that episode in The Bear about hospitality and service.
That's really cool. I mean, it is slightly difficult for me because I feel inspired.
You read the Bible so much that it's hard to pick out the one, verse.
You know what? I actually don't read that much volume of scripture. I do. I go through a lot of the same scriptures every day. Actually, when I read small chunks of the Bible.
When Paris Hilton got arrested,
I wasn't there.
Oh, long time ago. She was on Larry King after she got out. And she was like supposedly a Christian now. And Larry King goes, oh, that's great. What's your favorite Bible verse? And she goes,
that's
there's
so
just
mean.
So many.
I love that answer. I love it.
It's hard to pick one. We go, oh, okay, you're faking it. Perfect.
What if she wasn't? I mean, what if she went to rehab and she
maybe she
had
did,
a religious
but
experience in rehab? If you
I guess
have a religious experience, you had your first religious experience a month ago.
That's true. Maybe you don't have a full breadth of scripture.
Most Christians I know can't quote a single scripture.
My favorite is when we were doing baptism videos and we had to ask, I think I've told this story before, but we had to ask them what their favorite scripture was. And he goes, I don't know what the Bible verse is exactly, but I love there's two footprints on the sand, 2 sets of footprints, and then it turns into 1 footprint. And I go, cool. I did some really deep research. I was like, is this based off of anything in the Bible? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is not a Bible.
Okay, cool. It's not.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. We had the same,
the
same thing with,
hate to Paris Hilton.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm trying to defend Paris Hilton. I don't know Paris Hilton. She seems like a nice lady. That was one of the big moments too with Trump in his first election cycle.
There's so many. He said the same thing.
I always love the Corinthians. They're there. They're in Corinth. They're about to love. I think it's funny. I don't know. Honestly, the last really inspiring thing when we just had a church plant meeting on Sunday night, that was pretty inspiring for me. I had somebody come up to me afterwards and say hey, I've never felt the presence of God like I feel the presence when I come to these meetings. And then they shared with me some personal stuff. There's a couple that came up to me and they shared some personal stuff that had been really difficult. And then I prayed with them and then they were happy tears. And I was like, after our last church plant meeting this last Sunday night, I went home. And this happens every time we have one of our church plant meetings. I go home and it's just the most satisfied with church that I've ever been. And I go home and I'm like, man, there's 30 people there. And those 30 people had a genuine experience with God. And it was beautiful. So that's very inspiring to me. But also, I just watched Forrest Gump.
Let's go.
And Forrest Gump is the most inspiring movie in the world to me. Well, maybe probably Avengers Endgame is the most inspiring, but Forrest Gump is a very close second. And for 4 ways that don't exist in Avengers Endgame. And I'm always blown away. I used it as a sermon illustration last time I preached. I preached right after I watched the movie. Not direct. I didn't watch the movie and then leave the room and walk onto the platform to preach.
I'm preaching this message. Bob Zemeckis started it in 94 and I'm finishing it. I'm finishing the message. Let's bring it home, Bobby.
People, I know that it's a weird illustration, but it is such a succinct gospel illustration. Jenny is somebody who's broken and hurt and dysfunctional, and then out of her brokenness when she's a kid responds and reacts with a lot more brokenness and dysfunction. And she's soul searching all throughout the movie. And while she's soul searching out there looking for herself, Forrest is pursuing her and looking for her, because Forrest knows who he is and he doesn't he loves other people. For Forrest, meaning in life is genuinely derived from serving other people. He just whatever he can do to help.
Really responds to Jenny through her bad mistakes, right? He doesn't treat her differently because of the poor choices she makes, other than maybe saying you should go home to Greenbow, Alabama.
You should go home to Greenbow, Alabama.
Outside of that, though,
yeah,
still loves her, still pursues her.
It's amazing, and so that's one of my favorite inspiring gospel illustrations. Is Jesus has always loved me the way that Forrest loves Jenny, which is cool.
Love it, Ben. What's inspired you recently?
Ooh, a lot.
Ben. What's inspired you recently, Ben?
Yeah, tell us, Ben. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Cough it up, Ben. What's your favorite Bible verse, Ben?
There's a couple.
Old Testament, not New Testament.
Classic.
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
I've always loved the Corinthians.
The Thessalonians. Great people.
Corinthians, all 2. How many are there? 2, 3? I don't know. Maybe I should write a new one.
No.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah. That's it.
Speaking of politics, the RNC was this past couple days, and
Hulk Hogan was there. Let's freaking go.
What'd you say? Oh, that was the best. That was so funny.
How are you going to stop us now? We've got Hulk Hogan
helping president and vice president, people with their WWE personas.
We should get. I think.
Listen, this is how you really capture a crowd, okay?
I think if we really want to, they talked about a golf match. I think the DNC should get a WWE wrestler, and then that should be the next debate.
Actually, Hulk Hogan could. I think Hulk Hogan could give some pointers, like because like he was loved, right? And then he did a huge like heel turn, and then he was like loved and hated at the same time. And I think Trump is in that like loved and hated, right? But then Hulk Hogan he turned it again back to like the quote unquote good guy, and then everybody was on his side. I don't know, man. You just get some pointers. Get some pointers from Hulk Hogan.
He knows how to turn it.
There was 2 moments that I really enjoyed. One was the speech from VP nominee JD Vance. There was a really cool moment. Go for it.
Sorry, I keep getting distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the Ron Howard movie Hillbilly Elegy is based on
his book?
Him?
Yeah. Which is super cool.
I haven't watched it, but
we should watch it.
I did not know that was a Ron Howard movie. That's wild.
Yeah.
So there was towards the end of his speech. So it sounded like I don't know much. I know he's a senator from Ohio, lawyer, went to Yale, super smart. But it sounded like he was raised by his grandma, and his mom was kind of dealt with addiction and wasn't really kind of in the picture. And towards the end of it, he's like, "My mom is here, and she's 10 years sober." Everyone stands, applause.
It's incredible.
And he's like, it'll officially be 10 years in January 2025. Trump, if you don't mind, can we hold a celebration for her at the White House?
Boom.
I thought that was a really sweet moment.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
It's a good way to brag about your mom and still find a way to boast about yourself.
Yeah.
It's he fits right in. He fits
I thought you were
right
gonna
into
say-
the nominee.
I would say
that's
she would
incredible.
credit me for her sobriety. I'm the one who got her off drugs. I'm also the one who got her on the drugs, but I can do both.
Back when it was cool to be on drugs, I did that too.
As the famous song goes, I've got the power.
There was also
that song.
another moment. One, real quick. I don't want to quote the whole thing because I don't. It's like a minute. They brought out some college students who went viral for at a campus when there were a lot of stuff going down. They were protecting the American flag. They wouldn't let anyone pull it down, and it was really cool. It's like a minute long. You can find it on the internet. It's a really cool clip.
Yeah.
They brought him out. One of the kids gave a speech, and you could tell he was kind of nervous. His eyes were so big.
Yeah.
He's like, but he spoke really well, but I was like, dude, you are reading that teleprompter.
Yeah.
You are not letting your eyes off of it.
Well, you're only in front of millions upon millions of people.
Yeah.
No pressure.
But it was a really cool little speech, really nice little moment.
That's cool.
You should definitely check it out. The college students who protected the flag.
I will say, kind of similar in the sobriety moment.
Mm-hmm.
I said last week that one of my guilty pleasures is ska music, right? Mm-hmm. And Sublime is, man, any of those singles come out from Sublime's album, I'm like, man, I freaking love these songs, right? And they're all really trashy songs, but I love them. I love them. But his son, so he OD'd on heroin before the release of that album, before the release of their OG album, and his son was like a year old, right?
Whoa.
When he OD'd.
That's wild.
And so now his son is 27, 28, also sober. He like battled addiction when he was a teen, but now he's like the front man for Sublime with like the other 3 original dudes. And he sounds pretty similar to his dad. And
That's pretty sick.
they have a really good like single out right now. But it just, hearing him talk, like, obviously like the struggle, he was like, I actually had to really learn the catalog. You might find this interesting, but I like didn't ever really want to listen to
My dad's music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
oh,
so
how
I was like,
interesting.
oh, I totally get that. I don't think I would have thought about that without really like, actually thinking about it.
Right.
But yeah, and then like hearing kind of, the original dudes, and he's like, I just want, I want to keep it going. Like these guys want to play the music that they wrote like 26, 27 years ago. And now we get a chance to do that. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And it sounds sick. Like their new single, I think, is really good. But
That's
it's
super cool.
very ska. So not very ska. There's not like There's not like intense horns in it, but
Question is how many days sober are you from ska music?
0.
He's still got some
I
of his
listened to it
system, you can tell.
1. We're counting down the first day.
Not very many. Only one day. Okay.
All right.
Okay, well.
So
That's offensive.
I hope you all are inspired. What are your favorite, or what are famous villain tropes? I'm gonna read a few, and then you guys can kind of fill in some gaps if it sparks anything for you. One, we've got the mad scientist.
Yep.
You've got the very stereotypical mad scientist, right? Like from Bugs Bunny, that big head, and he's got a long syringe, talks creepily. But
Yes.
I think they've turned that into a more palatable villain, where they're
Like
trying to
a-
do a
yeah.
sciencey thing and something goes wrong.
Yep.
Right? It's Ben and I were talking about this. It's like almost every
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man villain.
Every Spider-Man.
It's
villain.
like,
true.
I'm trying to solve Parkinson's. Now I'm a human lizard.
I'm Jamie Foxx. Eels.
Yeah, eels. I fell into the thing with eels. So that's, mad scientist. But similarly, and I actually think, was Jamie Foxx's character, was he the scientist, or
Yep.
was he?
He was a scientist.
Okay. So Spider-Man 3, Sandman.
Yep.
You've got a creature
Yeah.
being transformed by experiments gone wrong.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
Hey, we got
Yes.
something on the radar. It's probably just a bird. Flip it on anyway. Sandman.
Phenomenal. Bebop and Rocksteady are in that category for me. They're
Yeah.
not scientists.
No.
But
You got creature.
You'd have
They are creatures who've been turned into another creatures.
the Fly villain, Baxter Stockman.
Baxter Stockman is also a mad scientist.
It's funny that he was mad scientist and then turned into
Creature.
a creature.
But that's the
Right.
same thing with the lizard.
Jamie the Lizard.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx. Doc Ock.
I think you've got.
Well, Doc Ock isn't turned into a creature, but he is a mad scientist.
It's kind of a Or I also am thinking a creature that is not in the mad scientist. It's like your own doing has backfired on you, right? Norman Osborn.
okay.
He's like, sometimes you got to take risks as a scientist. But then you have
Out am I?
yeah.
Sorry, just
then
every
I-
line,
I think-
every single line he says in that movie is utter genius.
So good. So good. But then you have, I think Bane would be, that
He's not a mad scientist.
he's not, no. I'm saying he's like a creature that's created by, like, someone who's experimenting on him.
Yep.
Same thing with, Wolverine, but
Mr. Freeze.
Sabretooth. Mr. Freeze, I think, is in the same category of backfiring.
Yep.
Mad scientist is
Definitely mad
backfiring.
scientist.
Zombies, like you have a plague that's like turned into in I Am Legend, right? The lady's like, I cured cancer. I did it. And then boom, we're in a zombie apocalypse. Thanks for nothing.
Lady.
Okay.
And then the other one is someone from the past seeking revenge. So essentially the hero
Yeah.
creates the villain.
Yep. Which is every Iron Man villain.
Iron Man.
Right.
You've got
I want my board.
the Batman, the bad Ben Affleck Batman one, where it's like, why didn't I see these? We should be paying this guy. And it's like, well, slip through. Now he's a crazy person, wants to kill people.
The Incredibles.
Kill people.
What's the guy's name? Syndrome.
Yeah. Syndrome.
Syndrome.
Exactly. He feels slighted from
Fly
Mr.
home,
Incredible.
buddy.
I work alone. This is one of my
Monster Club.
one of my real life quotes, and it never really makes sense in context. But Incredible, I think it's so funny. Bon voyage, Incredible.
Incredible. Bon Voyage is one of the greatest characters ever.
That's so funny to me.
Monsieur
Yeah.
Incredible.
God.
I feel like, what do you call Deathstroke from Batman? That's like a class of villain that is like a big deal in my head.
Like a
It's essentially which is essentially Bane from Dark Knight Rises as well, which is just the reverse Flash, if you will, the anti whoever the hero is.
Yeah.
I would even say the Riddler from the Batman is sort of like that. because they both have a similar goal, but they're going about it different ways.
Yeah. I would say this, as we're talking about, so that you kind of have these kind of archetype, villains. And then I think you have two, we'll talk about this a little bit, but someone who's just pure evil.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos, but I think the person or the villain that's most interesting in context is one that is the antithesis of the hero, right?
Yeah.
The antithesis of the hero, right? So if they have to clash heads, like his greatest strength is the villain's greatest strength as far as like, his evilness, or the one like weakness that the hero has, the villain is playing up on that.
Okay,
and I think that makes, from a character,
in your mind, is that
and
like
story,
classic Lex Luthor? Is that kind of in your mind? Is that a good?
I think you could. I think you could make it in. Yeah, I think you could talk about Lex Luthor in that standpoint for sure.
My favorite villain archetype is, and I think it probably fits into lots of the different ones you just named, but I think is the motive of the villain is what really gets me hooked on whether it's a good villain or not, among other things. But the villain on a crusade is the most entertaining villain to me.
Okay.
So that's why a lot of people, I think, love Avengers Infinity War is so much better for some people than Avengers Endgame, because in Avengers Endgame, you have a Thanos that's really not redeemable. He's kind of just a selfish a-hole.
Here's an interesting...
Thanos from Infinity War is on a crusade to help people.
Here's an interesting thing, and Ben and I were kind of talking about this. I agree. He's on a clear mission. He's on a crusade. And I do think motivation is huge. We were kind of classifying this is that it is from the villain's perspective, it's a selfless motivation.
Yeah.
But executed on a path that is
very selfish.
Right.
Very selfish, or it's in a very incorrect way to go about it. We were talking about General Zod in Man of Steel, where his motivation is he wants the Krypton civilization to continue, right? He wants his home planet, his people to continue, which is a selfless motivation.
Oh, dude, that's what makes him so good in that movie is he's like a soldier. He's a real warrior in that he's like, I don't care if I die. Like, and this is, he's like, I don't need to get anything out of this.
Right. It's just for his people to continue. Unfortunately, the answer to his people continuing is to wipe out Earth, which is a very selfish, that's an incorrect path to take. Now, my hang up with Thanos is he's saying the universe is overpopulated, and trust me, if I do this, everyone is going to be at peace, right? You never actually see a decaying universe because it's overpopulated. You never actually you're just bought in because he's on this crusade, and you're like, yeah. But
it's true. When they go to it's like very cool in the sense that it's really, again, a trauma response for him, that he's like, this happened on my home world.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to somehow erase the pain of my past by making sure nobody else's home world. It's the classic, like, I'm trying to fix the past with the future, which obviously doesn't work.
Right.
But he's so motivated by the fact that he was the unanswered prophet in his own world.
And I think it's, he's clearly passionate about it. And I think that maybe is why it works, is because whenever Josh Brolin
gives a great performance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whenever you give, or whenever you hear somebody talk about, what they're super passionate about, I'm always enthralled, right? I'm here for it. And so when you hear Thanos talk about it, you're like, man, this guy is driven by an overpopulated, universe. I think for me, he would have been an even better villain, is if you can see when the villain says, this is the problem, And then the audience, the people who are seeing the story, you go, yeah, that is a problem. But then their solution is wrong.
Right. No, you're right. But I do think the reason it connects with some people is because it's really funny now. It's really funny. Over the last 10 years, the political dialogue, 10 years ago, a lot of people on the far left were saying like the world is overpopulated. This is a good excuse for the legislation, pro-abortion legislation. Like we can't feed everyone. There's so many people starving. And that was a big argument for some people, like socially and politically 10 years ago. Funnily enough, they were completely wrong, and history has quickly proven them to be insane, unfortunately, because the reality is we have a birth rate crisis.
Right, yeah.
We're literally in a deep population crisis. So I think for some people that was probably, though, like that argument was pretty
the overpopulation played into it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I forgot about like his own experience, like the overpopulation, like
it was like,
and that I think that does hold weight. I forgot about it, but that does hold weight to say, oh, clearly overpopulation affected his home.
Mm-hmm.
And now he doesn't want the rest of the universe to experience.
Right. But you are right. It would have been so much more like you are right. It would have been so much more poignant if the other characters some of them felt torn.
Right.
Like if there was a couple characters that were like, hey, what if he's right? Like what if we're wrong?
Yeah.
And none of the Avengers had any moment where they were like, actually, we might be wrong.
Yeah.
So
it's a theme throughout the X-Men movies, but I think done really well in X-Men 97, which I finished watching.
Yeah.
Do you guys plan on watching it?
I've watched it already.
I'm sure I'll get to it eventually.
Okay,
like
well,
The Last Airbender.
Okay, well then I'm just gonna say it.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me?
Warning: everyone should go watch the show. It's really good, except for
it's good.
The Rogue and Magneto stuff that didn't work for me.
That was real weird.
Real weird.
He's old enough to be her grandfather.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought I was making a joke. I thought they were partners in a different way.
No.
My bad.
There's a really dumb. So okay.
Unnecessary.
Like,
very unnecessary.
I can't touch people. He goes, no, I'm powerful enough.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. It was just like,
if I'm riffing and making dumb jokes, but that's your storyline, you gotta work on it.
Yeah. The rest of the show is really, really good. But
also,
every time that showed up, I'm like, it made me
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
It also, dude, it was just so like gross. Like they didn't show anything gross,
No.
but like the implications of like,
Yeah.
this old man being the only person that could be physically intimate with her is just
Okay.
nasty.
Why
did they
in
have
30
to
Rock,
do that?
sorry, I've been rewatching 30 Rock, and Jenna makes jokes about like, what I mean, it's her main joke is, gosh, I'm blanking on names, man. He won an Oscar for the wrestler Rory. No, we're not Rory.
Rory Scovel.
No.
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke, thank you. Jenna's main joke is like she woke up like abandoned on Mickey Rourke's boat or like tied down on Mickey Rourke's bed. Like that's an ongoing joke. But she
Which
was
is so funny
was tied
because
up and
that crap
gagged.
happens.
She was tied up and gagged on Harvey Weinstein's bed. Was the last joke. I go, oh my god, that was 15 years early, but nailed it,
dude. I wonder if they made that joke and they were thinking like freaking screw Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. There's
Because
probably
they're like-
rumors or
Already,
stories
people
going
knew-
around
yeah.
for sure. But yeah, she said the joke and I was like, oh my god,
Oh my
that's so
gosh.
funny. Especially given the context.
Yes.
Sorry, it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. So towards the end of it, you kind of have a really good split between, because you always like, Magneto and Xavier, they're two different visions for the mutants.
This is the best example
Yeah.
for this. Yeah.
And towards the end
For
of it,
sure.
well, man, this whole show is, I think, really cool. So Xavier's gone, right? And so he gave the X-Men to Magneto. Magneto's like, you know what? I respect Charles. I'm sad he's gone. Let me give this a shot. And so he really gives it the good old college try to go about it like Xavier. And it like totally at the end. Everything's effed up. Like
Yeah.
everything hit the fan.
Yeah.
And it pretty much split the X-Men at the end of the season,
Yeah.
which was it was a really cool moment. And so if you were looking for that type of, actually see,
Yeah.
the Avengers.
Well, that is not only in X-Men 97, although they do a good job in X-Men 97. That is, like you're saying, that's part of the power of like the story of the X-Men is they do hop back and forth.
Totally.
Like, there are some of them that are like, well, I was on Magneto side, but now I think I'm more, and they don't even see it as like a change in themselves. They see it as like, it's not like they have a huge like personal transformation as much as it is that they're like, oh, I think that there's different nuance to this than I previously thought.
I would even
and they
say,
don't feel like it's not like they go from evil to good back to evil. It's just that
it's what I'm building right now. I'm like really mapping out the second Space Pioneer and Xander, and then the pirate Jocko. They're working together, right? And in Space Pioneer, Jocko's like, oh, maybe there is something to this like peaceful sort of thing. But in the second one, it's like the results aren't happening fast enough.
Yeah.
And if we did this, if we revert back to like my way of doing things, like we could make a really big splash. And so this like kind of motivation and
this, what is it called?
there's a little tension. Yeah, you got to find that tension, right? And so, but that was one of my big things that I wanted to do in this story was like actually create more interpersonal drama, because I think that's closer to real life, where Space Pioneer is very, the first book is very fairy tale-y in the sense that there's a clear trajectory of the character, and there's some ups and downs for the character, but it's all based on the experiences he's going through like at that moment, and then he comes out on top, right? It's like it's a classic hero's journey, but
yeah, it sounds really great.
in the second book, I still am following the hero's journey arc, but the trials and temptations are more interpersonal.
Yes. I like
They still have to kill a big sea monster, but there's interpersonal
do what you
turmoil as
gotta
well.
yeah.
And dude, it's my favorite. I talk about -1. We're talking about great villains.
Oh yes.
Ooh.
Godzilla. You can't even really call him a villain, right? I love big monster movies. You can't even really call them villains because, context I think also matters for people buying into a monster or a villain, right? So, Japan is laid waste by nuclear bombs in World War II, and then they create
not all of Japan,
but
yeah.
some
About 2 million.
Yeah, some portions of it. But then
Lots of people.
But then you create this monster who is awakened or surfaced because of the nuclear bomb testing, and it comes and it destroys Japan, but then you get to see the Japanese people defeat the monster. It's everybody, they are completely crushed because they lost World War II, suckers. Right. But then you get to live out.
It was a good dub for the rest of the world.
You get to live out the fantasy of we have defeated this thing that's trying to destroy Japan, and that's why OG Godzilla is so freaking good. And all of Godzilla,
the U.S.
ones, not so much.
All right, super sucky.
Right? Yeah. Like, and these new movies, I had to turn off Godzilla and King Kong because it's so bad.
Yeah.
Jesse Roberts.
Is Godzilla and King Kong the one where he's got the yellow?
Yes. Dude, he gets frostbite. He fights this. This is where I turned it off.
Yeah.
He fights this monster. He gets frostbite on his hand.
Yep.
And the guy from Downton Abbey is like, luckily, we've been working on this power arm for King Kong, and we have it ready.
Yeah.
They stopped funding, but we finished the prototype. Let's get it on Kong.
Yeah.
And I go, this is too ridiculous for me. I'm going to put Trimmer 6 on.
I was having a good time. It's really dumb, but I was like, yeah, big monkey.
I think
big monkey.
Well, and then you have the OG King Kong, the story, and it's in the 2005 one as well. But the story is not about King Kong.
No.
Right? Like, it's about the people. And in -1, it's a failed kamikaze pilot. And you are into this inner turmoil, like drama between this guy figuring out how to live being a failed kamikaze pilot.
His fear.
Taking care of a girl and a
man, how do you fail
and a
at being
daughter?
a kamikaze? That is rough.
Because that's kind of the point, right? He saw the writing on the wall. He wasn't going to win the war, and so
I crashed my plane, but I survived.
well, so he lands. I'm going to guess you haven't seen -1. He lands in the very beginning.
Spoiler alert.
And they go, well, it's in the very beginning. They go, we can't find anything wrong with your plane.
He's like something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. He doesn't say it in a bad Japanese. Ben's half Japanese, so he can say it.
I'm an eighth.
He's a quarter.
It's in Japanese. It's not in bad Japanese English.
Is that going to bite me in the butt?
Yeah, no.
No.
But then he
You're
goes
not white,
back.
so you can get away with
He goes
a lot.
back and to the city, and it's like destroyed. And this old lady is like, "This is why we lost the war, because of people like you."
It's
and like, it is gnarly.
It's a great movie.
And then they have to defeat Godzilla.
Yeah, it's so
like
good.
that's
It's a
that's why I'm like, this is such an incredible movie, because there's so much human story involved in it, and then you have to defeat a monster.
Really, Godzilla,
super
it's an
cool.
analogy for himself. He has to overcome his fear.
Yeah, in this one, it's him. Yeah, it's an analogy for himself, not America, like the original one.
Yeah.
But so that's another villain, quote unquote, the monster movie that you can't even say Godzilla's the monster. Like, he's just a creature like trying to get food, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is what is the Darkness movie? The lion one.
Do you want me to tell you?
Darius, do you know it?
90s Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer. Something Darkness.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. I know
what is it?
The Ghost in the Darkness.
The Ghost in the Darkness. Jesse, you should be ashamed of
And
yourself.
I'm assuming the lion is the villain of the movie.
Yeah, so it's based on a true story, right? This lion is a manhunter. It's a huge lion, but like it's the villain, but it's not really a villain. The lion just
Right, it's just a lion.
is trying to get food, and he just so happens to like the taste of human flesh.
What about Jaws?
Yeah, Jaws is the villain, right?
I don't need those.
Jaws is the villain, but he's not driven by this evil desire. He's driven by he wants food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So it's
he's hungry.
It's the villain that's not really a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's like, what is it? The like conflicts of a story, right? There's man versus man or woman versus God.
Or she.
Or she.
They or she.
They or she is one of the greatest lines ever. There's man versus God, man versus nature, man versus man versus self.
I have it right here.
Man versus they.
Missed some.
Or she.
I think man versus they is the conflict we're living in now.
Yeah.
I think man versus they is a great explanation of our current political climate.
That's silly.
It gets funnier for me the more I think about it. Sorry, go on.
Man versus self, man versus man versus nature, man versus society, man versus supernatural.
Man versus society.
That's what this one says.
Man versus she is the classic rom-com trope. That's.
He's a UFC fighter. She's an Olympic wrestler. Which one of them will win?
I did.
Her face is just hamburger. Man versus woman.
Cauliflower. Starring in cauliflower ear. Neither of them can find dates because they're freaks. But when they both notice that they have cauliflower, it's the. Oh man,
we haven't talked about. We hinted at it. Chaos, like a villain.
Chaos,
pure evil.
yeah. Do you think like pure evil? Do you find that we're talking about motivation? We're talking about these tropes. Do you find the pure evil villain interesting?
Like the Joker?
He's driven by chaos. He's driven by, he wants evil. I think, or, like in a horror trope, it's the ancient evil, right? It's just like, this is just a monster that breeds off of chaos.
For me, the only time, what's funny, when it's the monster that breeds off of chaos, to me, it just becomes man versus nature. You may as well just be trying to kill an animal. Like, it's like, there's no moral ambiguity. It's like, this is an animal that's trying to kill us, therefore we have to kill this animal. It just happens to be a supernatural animal.
Sorry, I keep going back to 30 Rock. In the same episode, they're talking about Jack's mom who died, and they're like going and visiting her estate, and a woman keeps saying like really positive things about Colleen, which Jack is like, this woman, why are you saying that? And she goes, so Colleen was an angel fallen from heaven. And he leaned over and he goes, so was Lucifer. Yes.
So was Lucifer.
Angel fallen.
It's me, Jack. Also, so was Lucifer. Get in here, Levin.
Or Alec. Speaking of Alec Baldwin, Alec versus
the pure evil.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, man versus gun.
Man versus gun. Which he's on like trial or whatever.
It just ended. He's good now.
He is okay. I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, you are assuming the gun you're firing is blanks, like
on set. Yeah, like poor guy. I mean, poor
That's
also the
sad.
lady that died.
Well, yeah. Well, I was gonna say we can ask Brandon Lee about it, but
not that funny of a joke. In heaven, we'll be able to ask. But you know that they're doing The Crow.
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay. We're getting way off track.
Pure evil.
Pure evil.
Pure evil.
I think pure evil is only interesting to me when it brings out something really interesting out of the main character.
Yeah.
The Joker is an exception.
I was going to say, I think the Joker is that.
The way that just that's a Chris Nolan thing. I don't know of any other movie, any other story where the villain is just no motivation but chaos.
Yeah.
It is so interesting. And I think the fact that the Joker's always one step ahead makes it interesting. The fact that the Joker is kind of like psychologically thrilling, that he gets a thrill out of just scaring people in a way.
Yeah.
It's like Chris Nolan just wrote a once in a lifetime character.
Well, you are definitely intrigued by how smart he is, right? Batman is this, and I think that that's maybe the things that, Batman's trying to clean up the streets, right? Through fear, but then Joker is creating chaos through fear, and Batman is this ultimate detective, but the Joker's always one step ahead of him. Like he's out thwarted the mob. He's one step ahead of Batman. Like it's
Batman. He closely black, cloaked in darkness. Joker, bright colors, face paint. Makes himself very well known in the room.
Yeah, totally.
When he sets fire to all the money.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most hardcore things I've ever seen.
He clearly is not motivated.
He just
by money,
care.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about sending a message.
Here's a quick aside, and then we're gonna
sending a message.
We're gonna say our favorite villains.
Okay.
And,
we gotta go.
Then we gotta go. The Joker. I think I have a rumor. I have a theory. I'm spreading a rumor currently. I have
starting a rumor.
I have a theory that the Joker is awesome and is now currently like the villain because of like all of the different incredible adaptations and like actors. So you have like Cesar Romero in the 60s where he's just goofy and awesome, but it's like so much fun. And that like fits so well in the Adam West Batman movie. But then when it was like, we're going to go a little darker, Jack Nicholson did the Joker, and it's awesome, right?
He just looks like a freak.
In the 1989 Batman movie, you're like, man, this is so good. And then even I would make an argument that Mark Hamill,
absolutely,
in the 90s cartoon, you're just like, so you have all these incredible examples and different iterations, right? They're like, sometimes they're subtle differences, sometimes they're big differences. And then you had Heath Ledger. Then you had Joaquin Phoenix's like Joker movie.
And those are all the Jokers. There's no other Joker. Those are all the Jokers.
Yeah,
that's it.
Totally.
That's all of them.
Yep. There's
not another one exists.
Not any of them. And so I just think that
Morbius is good though.
That plays into like the mythology of the Joker.
Yeah.
I think if we would have had a Colin Farrell Penguin in the 80s,
right?
I think he potentially could have been.
become.
Because Danny DeVito is great as the Penguin.
It's awesome.
But the Penguin is so much a caricature.
Yeah, it didn't hit as much as the
And
Joker did.
Batman Returns is crazy campy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Don't get me wrong. But it's crazy campy.
It didn't have an impact like Jack Nicholson.
Right. And I think you can make the same argument for the next two Batmans as well. Batman Returns, Batman and Robin. Or I mean Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Super campy. Freaking love them. But like, I think that Jim Carrey's Riddler was too close to
Joker.
We're missing a
No, no, no.
Batman. We're missing a Batman.
Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin.
No. George Clooney's in 2, isn't he? He's only in the 1?
Uh-huh.
My bad.
Well,
Yeah.
also you
You're
mentioned.
right.
I wonder if Riddler would have been more of a.
Well, so I think that you could say, well, freaking Jim Carrey is like,
He's just Jim Carrey.
he's awesome. Yeah, he's Jim Carrey as the Riddler. And I love, like, Batman Forever is in my top 3 all-time Batman movies. Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, but I freaking love it. Edward
Val
Nigma,
Kilmer.
Enigma, so good.
I was gonna say I wonder if it would have been different because Robin Williams was originally supposed to play the Riddler. I wonder
Oh,
if that
but-
performance.
Are you
would've-
serious?
Yeah. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't know that. And that would be too
That
weird for
would've
me
been-
because it would have been too much like the genie. You're like, are you good? Are you bad? What's happening? he's just granting evil wishes.
Keep going. I'm gonna see if the ACs can be on, and also I need to use the restroom. But you can keep
Yeah.
going.
Well, I mean, we're gonna wrap up in 5
I
minutes.
gotta wrap up right now.
All right. So
You could go to the bathroom.
my point is, I think there hasn't been as many
Yeah.
crazy iconic
Yeah.
villains as the Joker, and because of that, it just keeps building on why the Joker is awesome.
I do think Batman the Animated Series is. I mean, I agree with you that it like has built on each other, but man, Batman the Animated Series has really, really did a lot for the Joker. It made
Yeah.
the Joker. I think it made the Joker what the Joker is.
Yeah, I think so
But-
because Nicholson doesn't play a flamboyant Joker, right?
No,
He went completely away from it.
is
but
that
then-
Hamill? Is that Hamill?
Mark
in the
Hamill in the
90s?
90s one. And so he
That's
did
amazing.
a flamboyant Joker that's also crazy dark. And
Yeah.
because of censorship, he's not allowed to kill anybody, but he releases that gas that gives them the permanent smile,
Yeah.
which is even creepier, right? It's even
creepier.
darker. So, yeah. All right, favorite villains.
Dude, I don't know. That's
I think Star Wars. You got to give nods to Darth Vader.
Yep.
Of
nods.
course, Maul. So cool.
He's so cool.
He's so cool. I think the Joker
Yep.
is up there. And I love monster movies. And so like I'm going Predator. Like Predator for me is like the coolest monster. And likewise, since you get the lore that you're just like, they just want the best. And maybe this, you can actually just relate to it as a human. Maybe, these people are evil people, but I understand the desire where you're like, I want the ultimate like hunt, right? That's when people are like, I hunt mountain lions. I'm like, that's crazy bad, because half the time you're hunting the mountain lion, they're actually hunting you,
Totally.
right? They know you're there before you know. And so that's terrifying, but you're like, I want it. Give me the challenge, right? That's why the hunting man is so appealing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'll tell you, once you've done it, it's
hard
to find a brush that's the same.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Predator.
I hunt myself. You think hunting other people's hard? Hunting yourself. You have to trick yourself
there's a
into
movie,
not realizing that you're hunting yourself.
There's a movie
then-
called Self-Reliance with Nick from New Girl. I think he wrote it, and someone's gonna give him $1 million if like people can hunt him, but they can only kill him if he's not with another person. And
That's
so
hilarious.
anyway, it looks real funny. The Predator. I just freaking love the Predator.
It is so for life.
I think honestly, Anakin Skywalker might be my favorite villain. To be totally honest with you.
Yeah. Before Darth Vader, you like Anakin in number 3.
Well,
or the build up.
I mean,
you like the whole story that really
Yeah.
Star Wars is about Anakin Skywalker.
yeah, I would say Darth Vader, but yes, I want to include the fact that like Darth Vader in 4, 5, and 6 is in my mind only complete with Anakin from 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. The thirst for power, I think, is not enough for an ultimate villain. You're like, yeah, people like power.
Mm-hmm.
There's Slytherins out there, but there needs to be more.
Yeah.
And being a good guy, being awesome, and then like having your love like stripped from you.
Yeah, doing wrong because of fear, and then also all the intricacies that happen to make Anakin essentially abandon his identity.
Yeah.
Because of whatever to become Darth Vader. That's all very, very interesting, empathic stuff.
Fear leads to
somebody who's like, somebody
leads to
who's like,
suffer.
I just want to control everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you're just dumb.
Yeah, you're just a douchebag.
Yeah.
Not a good villain.
Not interesting. Not a good villain.
Ben?
I'm going to go after much thought and deliberation. Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Speaking of 90s animated, the Mr. Freeze episode, the 90s animated Batman. So good. There it is.
Ooh. I don't want to be like super, super dark, but it's kind of interesting. Nobody seems to know, or there isn't released information about like how Osama bin Laden became radicalized. Because he grew up in like a wealthy Saudi Arabian family and went to Oxford for college.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then at some point in time,
Well, you know what happens when you go to college.
Well,
I mean, apparently, honestly, interestingly enough.
that is super interesting. Well, that's it.
On that
Osama
note-
bin Laden is our favorite villain.
No,
Definitely not.
Just kidding.
Well, the reason I thought
villain.
that was,
We're saying he's a villain. It's not.
to be honest with you, this is very vulnerable. But when you said those people are just douchebags, my immediate thought was, they should just get killed, which is terrible. It's a terrible thing
The
to
villains
think.
should just get killed.
And then I immediately thought, oh yeah, we killed Osama bin Laden.
Sometimes we,
Which is
the train of thoughts that
I'm not
lead to one
pro-violent.
place. Yeah. I would say to wrap
I am
this
pro
up,
getting bad guys.
the reason that anti-heroes are so appealing to us is because they are doing good typically, right? Like a
Right.
Clint Eastwood Western anti-hero. He's
Yeah.
cleaning a town up, right? He's
cool hand,
he's
Luke.
taking out the trash, but he's doing it with the gun. And he's typically like a tortured sort of character. So I think that you buy into that. You empathize with that. And then they're solving problems in a way that we wish we could do without societal repercussions. So
Yeah.
the anti-hero is actually doing a lot of villainous things by societal standards, but it kind of plays into our evil. Yeah. Villains. So maybe we're our most favorite villain is what I'm trying to say. No, okay, that is a talk on the best villains out there. Movies, comic books, mostly comic books. We definitely didn't get
most
into
movies, comic books nowadays.
We didn't get into literature. Yeah, definitely. Even some movies that you're like, oh, you made that into a movie. Interesting. They're really I've said this before.
Say it again.
This is the official wrap up. I want them to launch a comic book series with an inaugural movie. Say, this is our new hero that is going to be a Marvel or DC hero.
That would be cool.
Here's the movie, and now we're going to do a comic book run with said movie or said hero.
That would be cool.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to New Way Stories. Like, subscribe, do all of that. If you want, you can write into the pod and comment who is your favorite villain? What do you think is a great villain? NewWayStoriesPod@gmail.com. Also, this Tuesday,
What happens
if you have access to the Yakima Herald newspaper or the online Yakima Herald, they're doing a little piece about me.
Expose.
A little expose about local arsonists and how.
Jesse was recently coming back from a trip from Pennsylvania, and they asked him about it. They asked,
Yeah.
what are you doing, Jesse? Why are you there?
Yeah. So
is it about your work? Is it about you like revitalizing Northtown?
it's a little bit of everything. So they're gonna
That's cool,
talk
dude.
about Rat Race. We talk about Rat Race. I mentioned the pod.
Wow.
So we might get new listeners.
Yeah.
I'm so
Hopefully
sorry.
we haven't scared any away on this last one. Thank you, new listeners, if you came over.
Some of the race walkers here in the comment section.
Yeah, and also, and then we also talk about Northtown, kind of when that is going to be back. And I mentioned how I enjoy building community, and that's kind of my desire behind Northtown and stand up and all that good stuff. So if you want to check that out, look it up, Yakima Herald. And August 10th, I'll give you an official time coming up. But August 10th, I'm going to be doing a Rat Race book signing.
Whoa!
Yeah, Rat Race book signing at a new bookstore called Paper and Glass. It's ran by a couple people that you and I graduated with, Darius, Erica, and Shayna. And I'm blanking on their last names currently. But
Paper and Glass. They love paper. They love glass.
August 10th,
Dope.
book signing. Come out.
Sick.
Get your copy of Rat Race.
Yep.
Get it signed. Hang out. It's a cool store too. So
what time are you doing that at? Because I'm working here in the morning on the west side.
I think it'll probably be in the evening. We don't have an official time set, but probably like 6-ish.
Okay. Well, I might come over.
Do it. Do it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.